Good morning, guys. John Eliadisha, Power Up 365. How are we doing this morning? What a great morning it is. It is Sunday morning, and it's a great day. I love Sundays just to reflect, give thanks for the week that has gone by, because I believe the greatest thing you can do is gratitude. And when you're grateful for a life that you've lived, a week that you've lived, you tend to power up. You tend to put life in perspective. Gratitude helps you put life in perspective. This morning I want to share this week that, or more importantly, the last 2 days. This week has been very busy, and sometimes we don't spend time for important things. And what I did this week is I spent 2 days on a strategy session for a school. Now, most times people would always use excuses, and I'm guilty of that. That we don't have time. We can't do those things because of our time, and we keep rushing all the time in business. But sometimes there are organizations that you can add so much value to. And if God's given you a skill set, it's your responsibility to help others with that skill set. Now, the reason why most people won't do that is because they'll say, listen, but what am I going to get out of it? What am I going to invoice them? How am I going to do this? And you need to move away from saying always, how much money am I going to get, to what exchange am I going to get? What exchange am I going to get? And these last 2 days I really felt grateful for being selected to go help the school with a strategy session. But I also grew as a person in the sense that they brought some kids there, and the kids have shared some of their stories, and we had group sessions with great guys and great people sharing their ideas. And it's not the important thing is we didn't know the answers to everything, but there was a strategy session on how can we improve, how can we go forward. So I want to share something that I got out of those sessions, where sometimes you think that, what am I going to get out of something, and why should I help some people if they're not going to pay me? But there's always exchange if you play full out. And so one thing that I've always had these power up sessions, and I've got Mega Future to help the youth, help grade 12s, and help kids get through their challenges. And when I created the program called Mega Future to help kids, I started realizing the pressures that they are under, and started helping them through coaching, through programs. And what I realized is yesterday when the kids were speaking is that those pressures do exist. And I knew they exist, but I wasn't focusing on that because my eye was taken off the ball on Mega Future and helping the youth and programs. I've always volunteered for those things, but they weren't working out as often as I wanted to. And a young student got up and spoke about that topic, spoke about the pressures that they have in school. And how often do we hear that when you're at school, those are the best days of your life, you don't have pressures, you don't have pressure in your life. And I think we need to reset that way of thinking, because I think our kids today do have pressures in their life. And a big pressure that I've discovered comes from the parents, because education has become so expensive. Education has become so expensive, and that cost, we put that as a burden onto the children. And that cost is our responsibility to our children. It is not their burden to carry, it is ours. And when you give something, You don't give something with a condition and you make our kids feel guilty for that cost. And we're all guilty of doing that because you see how much something costs you, and then you see your kid not being grateful for it, or they're not using it to the best potential. You see other kids that don't have those opportunities, and you make the kid that you are providing that for feel guilty, so you do more damage to that child than providing that service for that child. So I hope that makes sense. So for example, I spoke to a school a few years ago, and it was a school that their school fees are quite high, quite influential. And some of those kids were saying that, my parents do all this work to get me into the school, to give me opportunity, but with that opportunity comes a price of guilt. And what I got from that was that the parents are making the kids feel guilty of the expense, of the cost, of the hard work. So what does a parent do? A parent says, I work so hard to pay my kids to go to these schools, and they are not grateful, they are not thankful. And you must understand, you only know what you know. So you are 40 years old, 50 years old, 30 years old, and you have an experience of life on how hard it is to make money, which your kid, which is 10 years old, 9 years old, 14 years old, 13 years, doesn't have that experience, but you're imposing that guilt of that experience onto them, which they don't understand. You want them to understand it, but they don't understand. And that guilt, that pressure, is the reason why they can't go better into the opportunity the parent has provided. And I think as parents, we need to watch out for that. We need to be careful for that, because if we don't create the environment of belief, of support for our children, the cost that we have spent for them, the difficulties that we are going through will be a waste. And you will be the reason of the waste. So we really need to be careful on the words we say to our kids, because our kids understand pressures. When you come home and you complain about a boss, complain about your job, complain about money, complain about all that, and then you complain about the school fees, then your kid sees that, your kid understands that, and you put, without even knowing, you're putting that pressure on your kid. It's better to say, you know what, to your kid, I love you, I will do whatever I want for you, and don't ever worry about these costs. These costs are not, you don't ever have to worry about. Those are my challenges, and I do this because I want to, because I love you, and that's why you're doing it. And that is the reason why you're doing it, but the message is being lost to your child. And there are other pressures. We speak about the internet, we speak about all these things, that there are so much pressures that are being put on our children at school, and that pressure is taking away a mega future. It's taking away a future for our children. So my message is, I went there to help them, and what I also got out of it is that I need to step up my game. I need to reach out and help more children and get them on track to deal with that. And the way I believe is, I don't believe kids need psychologists as much as people say they do. I don't believe that. I believe kids are born with greatness. I believe kids are born with ability. They're born with all this skill set. They're born with all this way of overcoming their pressures. When they are born, it's a gift. They're born with it. But no one is teaching them how to deal with their skill sets. So you would teach a kid on cricket, on soccer. You would coach that kid to develop their skills, to keep practicing certain things so that they become better in soccer, in cricket, in sports, in swimming, and all that. But we won't coach a kid on how to deal with stress, how to deal with pressures. That's got nothing to do. We don't send a kid to a psychologist to better their cricket game. We send them to a coach to develop their skills, and then they have to do certain things. They have to hit balls, they have to bowl, keep bowling, keep bowling, keep bowling. They have to keep batting, they have to field, they have to do that. They have to get their fitness right, they have to get their body right. And that's how they do it in cricket. But in coaching on when they are dealing with pressures at their school, we don't coach them how to deal with that. And I think we need to get our kids into coaching programs on how to prepare themselves and how to develop their skill sets for a great life and how to deal with the pressures in life. So that's what I learned this week, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know this is a long recording, but I really felt it was important. So if you're a parent out there, just speak to your kid today and just ask them how they're doing, and coach them. And don't coach them by dictating to them. Coach them by asking them questions. You see, when you give your kid every time your experience, you should have seen when I was at your school, this is what we did. Kids don't want to hear that. Kids don't want to hear that. Kids want someone to talk to, someone to share their day with. And the reason why kids are not sharing their day with you as a parent is because every time they say something went wrong in their life, you're gonna go back to your experience, how you handled it, and your kid is a person on their own, and they need to deal through their experiences. And sometimes they don't want you to solve the problem; they just want someone to speak to. And then rather ask questions to your kid. So, today, this kid said this and this and this, and now you immediately, as you want to show your love, you say, no, you must go back and tell the kid that, or you must go to the teacher. And instead of saying, so when that kid said that, how did that make you feel? Instead of asking the question and let them discover their feelings and what do you feel we should do about this, and how are you going to handle this? Believe in your kid's greatness, because your kid was born with greatness. And they have the ability to overcome so much that you don't even give them credit for. And take the effort to study. A great guy to study is Stephen Covey on how to deal with children, because he had 7 children, and he speaks about how he identified the individuality of each kid, and how at the beginning he was so wrong and all the pressures he was putting on his kids. So take the time. Maybe you're the problem and you need to develop your skill set and in order to add value to your kids. So guys, this is John Eliade, Sunday, taking it easy. Go out there and have a great week and speak to your children more. Ask them more questions instead of judging and dictating to them your experiences and how you feel you should handle it. Because I think that's just creating more pressure on them. And remember, the cost of your kids' education is your responsibility. It is not you to put that as a burden onto your kids. Thank you very much, guys. Go out there and have a great week. Cheers. Bye.